Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I want to thank Senator Booker and Senator Lee for their great work on this. I was a public defender in Vermont, and so many of my clients had mental health issues. Some were homeless, and it was as though, you've heard this before, but in frustration in our inability to address issues of mental health, a lot of those folks ended up in the prison system and then had a hard time getting out. I'll ask all of you, what do we do about that? I think the First Step Act has been incredibly helpful in acknowledging that there's some folks who really are good to be getting back out on the street. But talk to me about how we can have the criminal justice system not be the mental health system of last resort. I'll start with our prosecutor here.
Thank you, Senator. We implemented in Frederick County a mental health court about 3 years ago. I think the specialty courts are critically important because you take a look at a segment of the population, the offending population, and again, you try to figure out why are they offending. That it's crime fighting. What people don't realize is they feel like mental health courts sort of soft on crime type of stuff, but it truly is crime fighting. You're preventing these people from reoffending and therefore preventing crime from reoccurring. So I do believe that mental health courts where you get people who are not lawyers, but are mental health providers and clinicians in the process so that they can determine what's best for this person. And again, once again, be strategic in terms of the offender and preventing further offense.
Well, thank you. You know, the one thing that's so frustrating about that is that if a person has like an addiction problem, that is tough for them to address, and it's not as though a lecture is going to do it and they're going to lapse and relapse. But we still seem in this country, much more than any other countries, to rely on the prison system to be the place, and the criminal justice system to be the place where we somehow, quote, address those issues. I'll ask Mr. Charles your thoughts on that, since you have some incredible experience of being on the losing side of that.
I agree with Mr. Smith. There needs to be more mental health courts. And
can you put your microphone a little closer? I can't quite hear you.
Thank you. I said I agree with Mr. Smith. There needs to be more mental health courts. And we do know that addiction and mental health sometimes play hand in hand. And oftentimes because what we call the justice system is punitive in nature, it doesn't distinguish between a person that has an addiction or mental illness. All it sees is the crime that they actually committed.
Okay,
and I've been in prison for 22 years, and I can clearly say that no mental health treatment behind bars is sufficient for some of these people that have addictions and mental illness problems. So I think that, of course, I believe that people should be held accountable for the crimes they commit, but they need to receive treatment along with the sentence, or treatment as opposed to the sentence, and that's it. Because behind bars, they only get worse, not better.
Yeah, and that gets us back to Senator Booker's concern about the staffing in order to be able to provide treatment or vocational training that we addressed. Mr. Smith, I want to thank you for the good work you did in your previous position in the last administration. One of the things that happened during the pandemic, as you know, is that there was a significant increase in the use of home confinement. Mm-hmm. That's become very controversial. And to some extent, it's controversial because there is understandable apprehension as to whether certain offenders can be trusted and the public can be safe. To some extent, it's a view that people want more punitive action than, quote, home confinement. But my understanding is that home confinement, by and large, was quite successful. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think you may be alluding to the CARES Act, which allowed
right.
a number of federal individuals to be spend time in home confinement, and it has been very successful. Former Attorney General Barr set great criteria of who qualify for that home confinement, and the recidivism rate for those individuals is less than 1%. Is extremely low. And we've saved a lot of money for the federal prisons, which we can use those dollars to invest in the current infrastructure and implementation of the First Step Back. And so I think we should certainly continue down that road. And I also want to mention on the mental health piece, I'm working with an organization called Care Solace. I think it's a critical thing as a country that we need to invest into mental health infrastructure that is a crime prevention piece, because a lot of people who end up in the prison system is because of trauma, backgrounds, and lack of mental health and drug abuse. And our ability to kind of set up that infrastructure is critically important. So working with local mayors to do that
Great.
would be helpful.
Thank you very much. Thank you. I yield back, Mr. Chair.